right, hello, Sooner Nation. This is Bizarro World. Now I'm using my phone because my computer sucks, and Steve's using his computer, so it's like Bizarro World around here. So
Yeah.
if you've listened to us that much, you know that we love Seinfeld references, and our lives revolve around Seinfeld references. So, but I mean, Steve's back from, and we will talk about this later on. He's back from the Disney cruise.
If you're waiting for your Disney cruise update, that doesn't come till segment 3, guys. So you want to know which of the Broadway style shows that Goss liked better? Did he like better the Golden Mickeys? Was it the Beauty and the Beast rendition? Or was it Believe, a Disney musical exclusively to the Disney Wish? Only time will tell. And I do have takes.
Oh, God. Okay, maybe it was a bad idea to say that. Let's talk about the Disney cruise. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Abort.
Okay, let's, while I do think probably most people on here want to know about my cruise and how that went, there probably are a few people
that's what they want to know about. So
yeah, there probably are a few people who want to know about Josie, what we have, I think first off, Jeremy, you and I we're students at OU during, the early golden age of the Josie era. And any take that Josie was not a successful AD is just a garbage take in my, I mean, now, do I think that he's lost some of his fastball, that this move is probably coming at the right time for Oklahoma? Yes, I do. I do think it's an evolving, changing landscape. And I think the need for change is probably there and coming. And I think that change is kind of what, pushed him out. No different than, could Jay Wright still be coaching at Villanova? Could some of those people who chose, hey, I don't want to live in this current landscape. And I think that was kind of the deal with Josie. Yeah. Yeah.
Look at Nick Saban. I mean,
yeah. Look at Bob, all those different people that could have made that decision, but nothing but positive for me. I mean, I don't have any zags. I mean, I saw somewhere where like Josie's a terrible AD. OU was barely over 500 if you count in their conference play, if you count every sport. Well, so I go and I took the Twitter bait and I clicked on that link. Josie was terrible at hiring volleyball coaches, guys. OU volleyball was like 8-52 in the conference or something like that. Everyone else, lots and lots of home runs. I mean, obviously Bob Stoops, Lon Kruger, just great hire after great hire. And I think his crowning achievement has to be the 2000 National Championship at Bob, and then just the creation of Love's Field and everything that's went on with the softball program since he's been here.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm told I'm supposed to be glad he's leaving. That I think one guy said, good riddance, what he's done for this program was a funny one I saw. But how long has Josie been here?
30 years.
30. In 30 years, if you keep a job for 30 years,
you're pretty good at it.
You cannot be deemed unsuccessful. I can tell you that much. If I keep a job for 30 years, they are giving me a big retirement party, and it's considered what a lot of people like to call in the business a success. And I just find it hilarious that we always, when something goes wrong, we always want to put the blame on somebody. It was like, can't just be Brent Venables. Josie's one brought him in. Well, all of our fan base wanted Brent Venables. So don't give me that crap. So, I mean, it's laughable. I mean, like I've said many times, I put myself in the same category, but we're idiot fans. We're an idiot
100%. And I mean, if you want to measure success in a different metric too, look at and we can kind of transition this, but, you hear about like the Saban coaching tree, the Belichick coaching tree, that sort of thing, all the different coaches in basketball who worked for Larry Brown at one point or another. But the AD tree that comes off of Josie is just incredible. And, while there are people from that tree who I do think have a good chance to be, the next AD at Oklahoma, whether that's, I do think the first person you have to mention, Zach Selman. I think if if the world wouldn't have changed as much in college athletics, I think Zach Selman was being groomed to be the next AD because, I mean, he's a Selman. Okay. So that ties to the olds. He's a younger guy that ties to the new. He's a guy who's worked a lot in fundraising, used to work for the Sooner Club, used to office all there. But I do think, some of the negative things that happened with Levy, with the Broyles thing and Art Briles thing and all that. I'm not sure that he's probably the top candidate he once was. Michael Alford, the Florida State AD. And, my personal favorite, if you're going to look traditional AD, it's Kirby Hocutt, who is the AD at Texas Tech. Now, obviously, I would love to bring the billionaire with him if Kirby Hocutt comes. But from that list or anything else, Jeremy, what are your thoughts on maybe just who you think is next if we go traditional?
Well, and I haven't dug into it. I've looked at all the guys that have candidates, and I'm kind of with you with Zach Selman. I think he's got to prove a little bit more. I don't think you get your dream job just after how long has he been at Mississippi State? 2 years?
Yeah.
3 years. I mean, not a whole lot of things have been successful, but also to Starkville, Mississippi is not the best place to lead a program. But that said, I do think Zach Selman, if they hired him, I don't think I'd go crying in the streets by any means. But that said, I like.
Oh, I think the average Sooner fan would though, because I think
they're going to cry whoever we get.
Right. I mean, we could hire, whoever. It wouldn't really matter. We could hire Sam Presti. That's what I put in our friend group chat when this broke. And I do think they were like, really? You thought, no, Sam Presti's not gonna, not gonna take that job.
Yeah, take a big pay cut.
Yes. And I mean, and come on, guys. It's not the same thing. Some other, but I think the real interesting thing here is, and Jeremy, I'm not sure if you saw this, but when the news broke, Dave Sittler, who was a newspaper man for Tulsa World for a long, long time, just kind of tweeted out that he insinuated that Joe C. there were some hires that happened that didn't really set well with Joe C. That he felt like some of his power was being stripped away. And if you want to put the pieces together, I think that somebody was probably Randall Stevenson. And for those of you and if you're listening to this, you probably know who Randall Stevenson is. But remember, that's the AT&T guy that in December, he was hired to be a special advisor. And then in February, he got the term the chair of football. And if you don't know who Randall Stevenson is, it's the brief biography of him. He's an OU grad, worked for essentially AT&T, started out Southwestern Bell. Worked at AT&T, worked his way up to be the CEO of AT&T. While he was at AT&T, they bought DirecTV, they bought Time Warner, and was extraordinarily successful. So, he's not taking the trips Jeremy and I are taking. Okay, he's got big time.
He doesn't go Disney cruising if that's what
he doesn't go Disney cruise. He rents out the park. Okay. He doesn't go, Jeremy was just telling me he's going to be going to Gulf Shores here next week. And if you remember back to our Thanksgiving pod, that's where I was over Thanksgiving. I was like, yeah, we're pretty fancy. It'll be 2 pods from Gulf Shores.
Finally, our sponsorship got me on vacation.
Yeah. So, and no besmirchment to the fine folks of the beaches of Alabama, but that's just a little different than Randall Stevenson. But going back to his background, also he's president of the Boy Scouts for a while, has some work. He's worked with the PGA Tour a little bit as well. So this is a guy who is a businessman. And this is who President Harris put in charge of this. And I think the next hire will not be somebody whose name is on one of these lists. I think the next hire is going to be somebody outside the box. Just kind of like we weren't expecting Nagy when we hired Nagy to be the football GM. I think this AD is going to be somebody more business-minded, more connected that way. one thing you hear me talk about all the time, the answer to all your questions is money. And I think we're going to look for somebody to raise. If you pay attention to that press conference every day, there was a lot of talk about putting in, double decking, the west side, the new press box on the west side. There's talks of building suites. There were talks about building at baseball. There were talks about all these financial things. And I think that's really the AD's job now more than ever.
Yeah. And I think the thing that a lot of people are talking about is football right now is everybody's high on it. It looks like it's going to be a good year. What happens if it's a bad year? The new AD is going to come in and possibly have to hire a new football coach and a new basketball coach, depending on two of your highest revenue sports. That is, if you think that ain't pressure on somebody, because one thing I'm going to miss, and one thing too, real quick, I'm going to miss about Joe C is
hats.
I know Moser. I know Moser has not been like the fan-friendly coach so far, but every hire he did in basketball was a hire that nobody expected. You remember
and it was
when
a little better than what we thought.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Remember when they hired Kruger? We're like, we didn't even know he was an option.
I didn't know we'd get Kruger.
Yeah. So it was just like, man, that's a home run. Even when we got Capel. Capel was an up-and-comer. And and Moser's the same way. He was an up-and-comer. He was able to get these coaches that not a lot of people talk about.
He was the hottest name out there, right?
For sure. And so those are
how good of a hire has Skip been in baseball? Don't give me
this.
We
can't give him credit for Patty Gasso, unfortunately, but still.
Yeah. But he also had enough sense too. You don't think Patty got offers to go back to California plenty of different times? Sure. And she's still here. But I think it's interesting to see kind of what happens at the athletic department too. And let's say, I do think this kind of changes the calculus a little bit for BV. I think if everything stayed the same, I think 8-4 kept his job this next year. I do think now, since you're going to have, kind of a whole new process, I think it's going to take 9-3 or maybe the right 8-4. I think it might take a playoff berth for BV to keep his job, because otherwise you're just kind of starting fresh. And it'll be interesting to me to see who we hire, and do we hire somebody who is more of a CEO type, who's going to be on the financial side of it? And then in that case, then I think Nagy might be the person who kind of makes the hire for our next coach. But if we go get traditional AD, then, if it's Kirby Hockett, or if it's Zach Selman, or if it's the guy from Florida State, a name that I would like to throw out there, just kind of doing some research and trying to think, okay, where can I go outside the box? There's a lady who is the president of the Mountain West Conference. Her name is Gloria Nevarez. Mm-hmm. And she was a former assistant AD at OU. And they did just this big celebration of Joe C about a year and a half ago. It was right after Selman took the job. And I was going through videos and looking at different things, trying to kind of get some insight into what Harris thinks about all this stuff. And he only interviewed 2 people to talk about Joe C. One was Zach Selman, which makes a lot of sense. Everyone talked about him. And the other one was this lady. And, a lady AD, that would definitely be outside the box. That would definitely be something in this. And she's somebody who's been a conference commissioner. So that kind of brings a different outlook to that. And I'm not saying this is who I think it's going to be, but I would like for some of our listeners to be, if that's who it is, be like, you know what? Freaking Goss said that. I'm glad that 8 minutes. He's not the idiot I thought he was.
And here's one I'll throw out there. Barry Switzer.
yeah. Okay. Can we just go through this? Bob's not taking this, guys.
Okay. 15 years of Barry Switzer, because I think he's going to live to be about 110.
Yeah.
And then when he passes away, he would do it until he died. And then Zach Selman can just slip right in there. I think that's perfect. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So people, when you hear that happen, remember Downing's the one.
Downing said it first. So if it's the king doing it, and he gets Bob to be his deputy AD, I think there's probably a better chance of Seth coming back and being the AD.
Or Kel Gundy.
Yes, exactly. There we go. Speaking of that, man, did you see the picture from the football game of Mike Gundy? That was just absolutely amazing.
I mean, I'll buy it just because of that. So
yes, no,
I told my son that I told my wife, I was like, I don't want to tell Baker that new college football game's coming out. And then I went downstairs and I go, hey, Baker, the college football game's coming out. And he goes, oh, really? You said you were going to tell him. I just wanted to get it. So
I lied.
I didn't really care. So
did you see that Brett is not Brett Venables? He's Brett Venables on the game. So a lot of respect for the Sooners out there. Good old Brett Venables. You know, it's like Calvin Sampson back in the day.
Right name. We don't have to pay him. So
yeah, exactly. Exactly. But you know, I mean, players. I don't think this AD thing is something that's going to get hemmed up in the next few weeks. I look for this to be something that probably will be after football season. That's kind of when I think this will happen.
That's a lot of pressure. This is a big year for OU football, and you're bringing in a new AD. That's a lot of pressure. And I think
unless if it's going to be Selman, I think it probably happens quick because I think maybe there's and I looked like what his buyout would be and, you know, different things. And I did look because originally I was like, man, we need to hire Kobe Hockett, the guy from Texas Tech. You know, that's who we need to get. He's a former Oklahoma guy. He really understands this landscape and, you know, and all that stuff. And I looked to see, I'm like, okay, like payment, you know, he does make a little bit more money. He does make a little bit more money than Joe C does right now, but it's very similar. And then I started thinking, you know, Kirby Hawkett's done a good job with some things, you know, as far as the fundraising and that. But like what he's done is he knows Corey Campbell, who's the billionaire at Texas Tech. And I mean,
it's laughable. It's
Zach Selman. And I'm not advocating for Zach Selman here, but like just to say Zach Selman's a bad AD because he went to Mississippi State football, you know, went to Mississippi State. Guys, it's a tough job. He went and made a really good hire in baseball, went and took away Virginia's baseball coach and brought him to Mississippi State. I mean, the position, I mean, you can't just, success is not just wins and losses as an AD. Okay. I mean, I am an AD. Okay. At obviously a smaller high school and that sort of thing. And
what he's trying to say is he thinks he should be a candidate for the AD job.
Exactly. That's exactly. You heard it here first. But
you heard it here first. There's my other prediction. So
yeah, it's going to be me and that lady. But
I'll tell you what, we'll get a lot more people on our pod. I got a feeling if you.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, that being said, you know, I know when I hire a coach, I know what the limitations are at Keys. And yes, every season, every sport, we want to win a state championship. But I know my expectation is going to be different as the AD at Keys when it comes to certain things than they would be as the AD of a different school with different situations, different demographics, you know, than doing that. And that's, you know, that's just the same thing. You know, if Zach Selman came here and we had the same success in football that they're having Mississippi State right now, then yeah, he deserved to be fired. That, you know, something's wrong. But the situation merits kind of how that goes. But all that being said, Jeremy, what do you know, if you're trying to put your prognosticator hat on, do you have a name? Do you have a thought? I really think outside the box is where I think this is going.
I kind of do too. I think when the hire happens, we're going to be like, well, I didn't even think about them. That's how I think we're going to be. Would not was it, but I mean, the one thing I'll say about OU athletics, I know Josie has a lot to do with this. You just never know what they're going to do. It is always a crapshoot. So,
well, you know, a lot of people when they go and they vote, like at the end of a lot of times when you vote on elections, they'll be like, keep judge, get rid of judge. And I'm the kind of person I always vote to keep everyone because I'm like, hey, it could always get worse. And some people are the get rid of everyone because we can always do better. One thing I will say for Joe C, and during the time he was here, we were always competent in everything we did. We were always professional in everything we did, except for our offense last season. But all in all, you know, I really am going to miss the Joe C era. classy guy, one of the best to ever do it. And again, great run. And those people who are like, thank God he's gone, go be an OSU fan or something.
Yeah. They hate life. I mean, obviously. Yeah. I mean, nothing's going to
I don't know what else to tell you.
It's our friend group.
Yeah. but
no, and we'll move on after this, but it's kind of sad because it's like it's a changing of the guard. Everything's changed now.
Yeah, I mean we're old.
Now,
I mean,
yeah. I know we act like, this sucks. Everything's got to change. Like, guy's been there 30 years. I mean, not many ADs last that long. So,
right. I mean you can't.
It is what it is. But, and I threw this little dagger at our friend group about Bob Stoops just to get him riled up. They're like, he's already said no. I'm like, yes, I know it.
Guys, we know Bob's not going to take it. I mean, it doesn't involve tequila
like,
and golf.
I'm getting tired of playing all this golf. Sorry,
yes, you know what I hate? Golf and selling tequila. Terrible.
It sucks. You know what I hate doing? Taking bass and hunters.
Yes, exactly.
It just sucks. I would get tired of it. So, but one thing I'll say, we'll talk a little sports before we get to vacations. But I'm really excited about the football team. I'm trying not to get my hopes up, but just everybody's with Mateer. This Mateer situation seems to be a home run so far. The only difference I'll say, because everybody that I say this to, they're like, well, the same thing with Jackson Arnold. I'm like, well, Mateer was actually playing quarterback last year at a high level. So it's not like, and he's also brought his AD with him.
Well, and he's not have learned anything new, guys. I mean, he's literally playing for the same guy, and he is teaching the offense to other people. And
let's not mention that he's got better athletes. Nothing against Washington State, but he's got better athletes.
I mean, look, we know this, and we're going to get way more into this, but I mean, Mateer is not my concern. It's not. I mean, I think the tape is there. My concern is our offensive line going to be good enough? And are we going to have enough playmakers, especially at receiver, that can go make plays? And because, I mean, I just feel like, one thing too, everyone talks about all the John Mateer hype that's out there. There's a lot of Jaden Ott hype too, guys. I mean, there's a lot of like Jaden Ott is the best running back in the SEC. Jaden Ott's a top 5 running back in football. Jaden Ott's a, second round draft pick, this sort of thing, or the, 1, 2, or 3 rated running back. Whether you are a Javonte Barnes guy, if you're a Xavier Robinson guy, either way, those are 3 competent backs that we've got. And I didn't even say the guy who was the number 1 rated back the year before. And I thought Taylor Tatum was gone. I did, but he's not. And that's a big running back room. Now, whether it's going to, I don't worry about, I feel like with Mateer now, with Mateer and with our change with Arbuckle as the OC, I don't think we're going to have the DeMarco does the random rotation things anymore. We've got a horse.
I need to stop to that. Yeah.
And
you wouldn't have brought in Jaden Ott. You wouldn't have brought in Jaden Ott if that's how it was going to be. Jaden Ott's not coming here if they tell him you're going to rotate with Barnes, with Robinson, with Tatum. I could see him rotating with Robinson. Robinson starts progressing the way he is so far. I think it could he could get a lot of stuff.
And part of it is, guys, too, and I've been excited to hear this, and some of my quote unquote inside sources have talked a lot about this, that there's going to be a lot of 2-back things because we're not super high on where we are at tight end. So in an amazing turn of events, we're going to coach to the talent we have and run more 2-back than we are 2 tight ends or even a tight end. I know it's a shocking thing to do to put your best 11 on the field, but I do feel like we're going to do a lot more of that, which I think is exciting. I'm very, very, very excited about that. Something I did, and this is what I thought I was going to talk about the most on this pod, was I spent a lot of my Disney cruise reading this right here. Okay. Phil Steele's College Football. You can see how thick this bad boy is. And, Phil very high on the Sooners. which hey, everyone will go buy the magazine now, but the Oklahoma has the number 1 rated defensive line unit. Number 1. That's pretty good. Okay. Oklahoma has the number 5 rated running back room. That's pretty good. Oklahoma has the number 4 rated linebacking room. That's pretty good. Those are exciting things. That's not just in the SEC. That's everywhere. And I just think he talks about Oklahoma being his number 1 most improved team, number 1, number 4 improved team, number 1 surprise team. Really, really likes Oklahoma. Has lots of positive things to say about it. And I'll get more into some of the numbers and all that stuff as we move on. But Jaden Ott, first team All SEC running back. Just lots and lots of positivity in this magazine, and has Oklahoma ranked number 9 in the country. I think we'd all sign up for that.
Yeah, especially with that schedule. I mean, and here's the thing: if depending on how our losses are, an 8-4 in that schedule, I mean, you don't know where they're going to be. I mean, depending on where those losses come from and how what they look like. But like you said earlier, it depends on how the 8-4 looks. Kind of what if we go out there and get our butt handed to us for 4 losses, and we look ugly and there's no improvements. But I just don't see it right now. And I know you're always optimistic going into a season. Well, we are, but I don't know. I'm trying not to get
different. And I'm really excited for, obviously I'm excited to play games. I'm excited for Media Day coming up. Thought that was kind of interesting, Jeremy. And I'll kind of just steer back away from Phil Steele back away from some other things. But I thought it was pretty interesting to see the 3 people were taking 2 media days. I mean, Mateer was a slam dunk. R. Mason Thomas was a slam dunk. But Robert Spears Jennings, I was kind of surprised that he was the 3rd guy that was going. But, personally, to me, my biggest question marks are still on the offensive side of the ball. There's still an offensive line and receiver. Those are my biggest question marks. But I think that a lot of the narrative is question marks in the secondary. And seeing Spears Jennings as one of those people, you can really say, Jeremy, he probably had a better year last year than Billy Bowman did.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's a reason that – I think when all the coaches talk about OU secondary, OU's defense, Spears Jennings always on the short list. And they talk about the guy is just built different. And it's crazy because he just kind of came out of nowhere. If you really want to look at it, it's like you have Billy Bowman, you have the Bowen twins, and it's just like Spears Jennings was never really talked about. And he's definitely started out good. Keep him healthy, he could have a special season for sure.
Yeah. You look at, he was 2nd on the team in tackles last year. He had 66 tackles. I think if you were to go ask people who was 2nd on tackles, if you'd asked me before Phil told me, I would have said Cubby Kip Lewis, who I'm high on. I think Kip's going to, Kip is a good player, and I think he's going to continue to be better. And you can say, well, defense isn't very daggum good when someone that far off the ball is leading the team in tackles. And he didn't lead the team in tackles. Okay, Stutzman did. I understand that. But this is the guy who is a sure tackler. I'm excited to see that. I was listening to Gabe and Teddy talk, and they were talking about it. And, Teddy, I think it was Gabe throughout, let's just take Michael Fasusi to show people what they have to deal with for the next 3 years. But I think it's still important, as much hype. If you were to ask me, I probably would have said Ott was probably going to go as that 3rd person just because of the money that we're paying him coming in. But I think it was important to show if this team is going to get to the playoff, obviously the offense has to be better. But what is Brent Venables about? Defense. Yeah. And I think that we're still taking 2 defenders shows, and maybe it's not. Maybe I'm overthinking this. But I think it shows that that's still where the emphasis is going to be, is on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and that's, I think, also too rewarding our Mason Thomas for coming back as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
It's like, you look at him. There was a lot of, that guy kicked the tires on the NFL quite a bit, and he stayed there. Now I know money talks, and they probably paid him very well. But that said, he still returned, and I think it's kind of a reward to him as well. And you're going to bring Mateer. Mateer can talk. He is a Baker Mayfield. I know people get tired of hearing this, but he is a Baker Mayfield.
And this is important for Mateer too, though. I mean, like, we've kind of gotten all this hype, and we've heard some. And to me, the guy's made all the right decisions. We've seen him at softball games. We've seen him at baseball games. We've seen him, do these different things. But what's he look like? I mean, one of the things that none of us liked about Jackson Arnold is Jackson Arnold never really carried himself like the quarterback at Oklahoma. And we think Mateer does. Everything we've seen says he does. But it's going to be interesting to see when he's going through the car wash and he's on SEC Network and he's talking to Feinbaum and he's going through all this stuff. I'm curious to see, let's see that swagger continue to shine through. And I know swagger is not a cool word anymore, but that's what I want to see.
I kind of want to see what his drip looks like, but I heard kids like to say drip now. So, so I'm going to check his drip out and how that looks.
Yeah, it's the bomb is what I heard.
Okay. Now easy. Let's not we're losing views as we keep going. So.
Unfollow, but
paying YouTube to post this. So
yes, exactly.
But no, it's exciting. I'm ready for it to start. This is the worst part about sports, is when you're right in the middle of it and the Braves suck and Yankees are on a skid. And so it's like baseball. I got yelled at the other night by my wife because why do we have a baseball package if you don't watch the Braves ever? And I said, I don't want to watch them. It just makes me mad. So I'm still on the Thunder high. But
Yankees did finally DFA DJ LeMahieu, so I'm pretty sure Jeremy and I played against the Little League. But
yeah, I'm pretty sure he had something on Aaron Boone. Like he knows Aaron Boone was sleeping around on his life.
Aaron Boone's a freaking idiot. Aggregate that. Aaron Boone's a freaking idiot. Aggregate. Get as many views as I possibly can. Aaron Boone sucks.
Okay, before we get off here, Goss got to do something that my wife has talked about for 8 years with the kids, is a Disney cruise, which I always find something else that's probably better to do, like stay at home, than to go to the Disney cruise. I had this before you. We went on a cruise on our 5-year wedding anniversary. It's the best thing I ever went to. Warrant, I had none of my kids with me, so.
Best trip ever. Couple things. Number one, best part of the cruise was that my father-in-law paid for most of it. So, that's number one. But that being said, I had my skepticism. I had been on a cruise. The last time I was on a cruise was it's the year that the Bulls beat the Trailblazers. So this was 1992, okay? Because my dad and I watched this in 92, okay? And my dad and I watched one of the finals games on the cruise boat. They actually let me go into a bar area, even though I was not even 11. I was 10 years old when this happened, but they let me sneak back into a bar area to watch this with my dad. And so I did watch a Bulls final game. But anyway, that's my previous cruise. Let's talk about this one now. It's amazing how big those ships are. And if you saw the news about the girl who fell in and the dad jumped in after her off of a Disney cruise boat, that was the exact cruise boat we were on. That actually happened the day before we got on. And so my sister,
that was on yours.
Yeah, my sister, it was on the same boat.
With that, so.
Yeah, my sister-in-law has young kids. Has going to be a pre-K-er and going to be a second grader. And so when we saw that, we're like, oh crap, we got to make sure, but that everybody's safe, and everybody got back safely. But biggest pros I can say, if your kids are if you're the type of person who likes to go on vacation and have decisions made for you, like, hey, I know where we're going to eat, like here's this buffet, here's this nice sit down dinner, here's all this stuff going to get there, here's room service, all that stuff. A cruise is awesome for that. The 2 Disney islands we got to go to, unbelievable beaches, unbelievable, super nice, super clean, all that sort of thing. We also went to Nassau in the Bahamas. I can't say I would advocate for going to that city. That city is a little rough, but I'm a nerd. I enjoyed the Disney productions that you got after dinner. I was there every night. I watched the magic show. I went to those shows that I talked about in the beginning. My favorite is the Golden Mickeys. Really enjoyed the rendition of the Hercules song that Michael Bolton sung. It wasn't Michael Bolton there. That would have been big time early 90s reference there. But really enjoyed all that.
Times are hard if Michael Bolton's there.
Yeah, if Michael Bolton does not fell that far. But anyway, enjoyed the shows. Enjoyed all of that. Ship's really cool. All that free ice cream. So Goss did give you see my face, it's a little bit fuller. Then I came back. I say the worst thing that happened to me is, guys, when you go to the beach, I did spray the top of my feet with sunscreen, but I only did that one time, and then got in the water, sat back on a chair, and burnt the living crap out of the top of my feet, which is not very much fun. So be careful out there. But yeah, all in all, 2 thumbs up on the Disney cruise.
Well, we will be doing the pod, and we'll be around Gulf Shores. We'll actually be more in Florida, but just because of where we got the condo. But a funny story about ours is we're getting an Airbnb, and we've usually got these condos off of VRBO. And this is the first time we got it off Airbnb. And the lady, I thought I was going to have to give her a blood sample. She was like, "I'm sorry, this is my personal condo." And I said, "Yes, I know. That's how Airbnbs work." And she asked if we had any reviews. And I said, "Well, luckily for you, my kids don't like to vandalize. So we'll leave the spray paint at home." But
she was probably an ICE agent and, was worrying about possibly
I know I thought we're the Millers, and we got the
drug deals exactly.
Yeah, Pensacola, Florida.
Yeah. So you're friends with that Goss guy. He's been on like 6 vacations this year. He's obviously in the mafia. So we got to check on that.
I don't know what that little drug dealer. I don't know what that drug dealer's doing, but
yeah. Public education, folks. That's where you get rich.
Finally paying on vacation for.
Public education.
But no, next week we'll do the pod there, and I will be driving Friday night all night to Florida, so I'm sure I'll have a lot of stories, and it'll only be
right. We'll have media day. Media day will be done. We'll have some more info on that. Maybe I'll have my interview for the Oklahoma AD's job, and I'll let you know how that goes. Hopefully that goes well for me. So fingers crossed. If that's the case, I'm off of Soonercast. Darren will be Jeremy's new co-host. And I think our views will either go like this or like this. They won't stay flat across. So, Boomer, everybody.
I will have to change the code to explicit if Darren's on
yes,
there.
exactly. The parental advisory thing will have to come out there at the
bottom. All right, guys. Well, until next time, like we said many times, subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Apple and Spotify. Sorry, I got lost there. I was like, what are we on? I was like, I don't know. Apple and Spotify. And until next time, Boomer Sooner.
Soonercast@gmail.com. Boomer.